Erev, Erev Tov, good evening. Welcome everybody who's joining. Thank you for coming. I'm Shlomit Ben-Michael. I'm joined by Nurit Altura, my colleague. We're going to wait another minute or two to let a few more people join, and then we're going to get going. Thanks for your patience. Erev Tov from Israel. Good evening from Israel. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you may be. I'm Shlomit Ben-Michael. I'm the head of the Higher Education Department at Nefesh B'Nefesh. I'm joined by my colleague Nurit Altura, who's part of our department and an Aliyah advisor for Nefesh B'Nefesh. And I want to thank our colleague from marketing, Arena, who's doing the technical magic behind the scenes. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we are going to get started. We are going to speak this evening in Israel, or wherever you may be. We are going to talk about graduate school in Israel. And before we get started, I just want to invite any of you, if you have questions, there's a Q&A at the bottom. Nurit and I will be more than happy to answer your questions. Just put it in the Q&A and we'll do our best to answer whatever questions you may have. So let's get going. Okay, so what are we going to be discussing today? First of all, we are going to talk about the Aliyah process, which Nurit will discuss. We'll talk about the graduate degrees in English in Israel. How do you apply for an MA in Israel? The pros and cons of what language you choose to study in. We will also talk about the amazing Student Authority tuition benefit, the TACA pre-academic program, and we will have Q&A at the end. So let's get going. Nurit will talk about making Aliyah.
Okay. So when someone makes Aliyah, they're assigned into one of three categories or statuses. The first question an Aliyah advisor would ask, or the Jewish agency would ask, is, are either of the Ole's parents Israeli citizens? And if the answer is no, then the status of the Ole is very likely to be an Ole Chadash, which is the most frequent kind of Ole that we deal with. And this kind of Ole is going to need apostilles on all their government documents, plus background checks from whatever countries they've lived in after the age of 14. Now, if an Ole has at least one parent who was Israeli before the child was born, meaning did not make Aliyah after, like recently or after the child was born, then the next question to ask is whether the child, or the Ole in this case, was born in Israel, or did the Ole make Aliyah before the age of 14? If the answer is no, that the Ole wasn't born in Israel, did not make Aliyah before the age of 14, then this Ole is going to be considered an Ezrach Ole. And it's very important to know if you're in this status as soon as possible, as soon as you're even considering Aliyah, because you won't be able to make Aliyah until you're registered at the Israeli consulate, and in most cases, get an Israeli passport, okay? If you're not registered as an Israeli yet, then it's a very good idea to go onto the Nefesh B'Nefesh website, just type in NBN, Ezrach Ole, Israeli passport, and you'll see the steps that you need to take in order to register. And when people do it as an adult instead of as children, more documentation is required. So it's a good idea to get started on this, even if you're planning Aliyah down the road, to get started on this as soon as possible. And if somebody was born in Israel, or they made Aliyah before the age of 14, and they moved out of Israel, they relocated before their 14th birthday, then they are going to be considered a katin choser. If they didn't, if they lived in Israel past their 14th birthday, they're a toshav choser. They're not going to get the same benefits as the other three statuses that we talked about, and they would work directly with what's called Bait Israeli, which you can reach out to your local Israeli consulate or embassy and find out more about. However, if you moved with your family out of Israel before the age of 14, then you're going to be considered likely a katin choser. And the most important thing to know about this status is that you'll be asked to provide proof of where you've been living since the age of 14 until now. And since most of you, I believe, are around college, grad school age, it's not very hard at all. You can provide college transcripts, high school transcripts, and get that requirement out of the way. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is the Aliyah benefits that you can expect, once you're approved by the Jewish agency and you've made Aliyah. So the first one, and one that's considered very important by most people, is the financial assistance, which is also called Sal Klita. It's a little bit more than 20,000 shekels per person, but there's actually a Sal Klita calculator, and if you input different information that the calculator is asking, like age, marital status, you'll find out exactly what you should be receiving. It's over 6 payments in the first 6 months of your Aliyah. Another very important benefit, especially to the people on this webinar, is tuition assistance. You can get a free degree, and Shlomit is going to discuss that one. The rental subsidy starts in the 8th month of Aliyah. The regulations have changed recently. It's not a lot of money. It's about 400 shekels a month for about 2 years. For the first 6 months you make Aliyah, your health coverage for Kupat Cholim is going to be free, and if you're not working yet, after that 6-month mark, then you can extend that free coverage for up to a year. You also are eligible for free Opan, 5 months, 5 days a week, 5 hours a day, and you can use this benefit in the first 10 years of Aliyah. There's a shipping benefit where during the first 36 months after Aliyah, you get reduced taxes, and you pay reduced taxes and customs on 3 lifts or shipments into Israel. The shipments themselves are not free. It's the taxes that are reduced. If you make Aliyah from outside of Israel, then you can request a free flight to Israel, and then you'll get the free taxi from the airport. There are other benefits as well, and if you wanted to look and find more information about each benefit, including how long you have to exercise each benefit, you could just Google NBN benefits and find a very comprehensive list. Okay, how do you make Aliyah? So the first step is to apply, and we recommend that people start the application process about a year before they intend to make Aliyah. You fill out an application on the Nefesh B'Nefesh website, and the Aliyah engagement team is gonna be your first point of contact. They're gonna speak to you, and if they see that it looks likely that you're gonna be making Aliyah within about a year, and you're eligible for Aliyah, then you're gonna be assigned your own Aliyah advisor, who's going to talk to you both about planning and procedure. So in terms of procedure, the documents that you're going to need, just a very brief overview, is vital records like birth certificates, marriage certificates, divorce certificates, death certificates, with apostilles. which is government authentication of these documents. If you're an Oleh Chadash, you'll need a criminal background check. You'll need valid passports that are good for at least a year after your Aliyah date. And maybe the most important thing is the rabbi's letter, which is a very specific kind of letter. It has to be from a synagogue or community rabbi on the synagogue's letterhead. And the last thing that we'll quickly talk about is the difference between making Aliyah from outside of Israel versus within Israel. If you're making Aliyah from outside of Israel, you're working directly with the Jewish agency. So after you upload your documents, you're going to be presenting the documents to the originals to the Jewish agency, interviewing, waiting for Aliyah approval, and working directly with a shaliach, with a representative from the Jewish agency. If you're making Aliyah from within Israel, in most cases, you're going to be working directly with Nefesh B'Nefesh. And once all your documents are in, we're going to get you pre-approval from the Jewish agency, but you're not working directly with them. And pre-approval from Misrad HaPnim, you show up. If you receive the pre-approval, you show up at a specific time at Misrad HaPnim. As long as you bring the original documents, you make Aliyah on the spot. So it's a much more streamlined process. The benefits are the same, but you're not going to be getting that free one-way ticket or the taxi. And that's a very brief overview of Aliyah. So Shlomit is going to talk to you now about grad school.
Great. Thank you so much, Nurit. Before we continue, I just want to share with all of you that this webinar is being recorded, and God willing, tomorrow we will send an email to everybody who registered excuse me, for this webinar with the links that we're sharing and with the PowerPoint presentation. So we would be, we're happy that you've joined us, and we welcome all of you. Thanks for coming, and let's talk a little bit about the universities in Israel. So Israel has 10 universities and over 60 colleges. This QR code to the right is a link to all of the English language programs in Israeli universities and colleges, and I invite all of you to scan it and take a look at that. And every single Israeli university is unique. Many are globally ranked, and the amazing thing that I've noticed over the last few years is that all of the universities have really produced phenomenal websites with lots of English language information, even about their Hebrew language programs. So if you Google any of these universities, you'll find a wealth of information about all of their programs, particularly their graduate programs in English and in Hebrew. So before we dive in, I just want to say that there are a few major discrepancies or differences between the North American system and the Israeli system. In Israel, there are a number of professions in which you get licensed on the bachelor's level, on the undergraduate level. So if you're making Aliyah or moving to Israel with a BA already and you would like to go to law school, please note that you are going to be studying law on a bachelor's level, because law is a 3.5-year degree, after which you will be doing about a year to a year and a half of stage, of internship, and then taking the Israeli bar. It's a similar system with OT, PT, and speech. These are all licensed professions, and all of them are being licensed after you do a BA in these fields. Social work and nursing are a little bit unique. Both social work and nursing are also licensed professions in Israel. And once you do a 3-year bachelor's in social work, you automatically become an Israeli licensed social worker. But if you make Aliyah with a BA, you can automatically apply to a special MSW program in one of the Israeli universities. And within 3 years, not only do you have an MSW, but you're also a licensed Israeli social worker. So it's an advantage to have a BA when you make Aliyah and decide to study social work. And for nursing, it's similar in the sense that if you want to be a nurse, you do have to study on a bachelor's level. You can't jump to graduate school if your BA isn't in nursing. But instead of studying for 4 years, you can study for 2.5 years and become a registered nurse. We have tons of information on our website. I invite you to look at the information we have. And because we're going to be sending all these links tomorrow, you'll have it at your fingertips. And we'll be happy to also answer all of your questions. If anybody has questions, please put it in the Q&A, and also our email address is also going to be in the last slide, and maybe you could write the email address in the Q&A so people can see it. And we will now share the 9 out of 10 universities in Israel which have degrees in English on a master's level in graduate school. So you are welcome to scan each of these QR codes. Every university in Israel has many, many degrees, both undergraduate and also on a graduate level. There are over 130 degrees in English, and they run the whole spectrum of almost anything you could possibly want to study, whether it's nanotechnology, brain science, almost every single engineering degree, and you name it, it's almost all available in English. There are still a few degrees in Israel, specifically in the licensed fields, such as psychology, which are not yet being offered in English, but we are working on it. Nefesh B'Nefesh is working together with the Student Authority, which is a department of the Ministry of Aliyah that helps students, and we're working very closely with them and the universities to increase the number of English language programs in Israel. In the last year and a half, we've worked together to develop a special model that is specific. We call them academic integration programs for Olim, in which the first year of studies is in English and the rest of the degree is in Hebrew. And the idea is for Olim to graduate with very high level Hebrew. And in the first year of studies, when it's in English, there's a lot of Ulpan. So while most of these programs which we've helped develop are in on an undergraduate level, there are also quite a number in that are offered as an MA. So I invite you to click on all of these QR codes and also go onto our website and read all about it. And I want to relate medical school in Israel because I get asked about this all the time. Medical school is offered in Israel in 2 different tracks. A 6-year track, which starts from the BA level, but I'm assuming that any of you on this webinar are, if you're interested in medical school, I'm assuming that you're doing some sort of pre-med degree and that you'd like to be studying a 4-year degree. Israel has 6 schools right now which offer a 4-year medical school. Ben Gurion University in Beersheba is the only one that is in English. This also is in our hybrid model. The first 2 years are in English and with tons of Ulpan, and the next 2 years are in Hebrew. The other universities are Tel Aviv, Bar Ilan University, which has a branch in Tzfat, Ariel University, Reichman University, which just opened up a brand new medical school, and the Weizmann Institute, which is opening the doors of its new medical school in the fall. I'd like to mention that while many of you will be studying for your MCAT, only Ben Gurion and Reichman at present accept the MCAT, while the others all require the Israeli Mivchan Yeda, which can only be taken in Hebrew. This is the time for you guys to do those online Ulpan and improve your Hebrew as much as possible if you're planning on doing medical school or any sort of master's degree in Hebrew. And also a new law that was recently passed is that any student who wants to study in an Israeli medical school has to either be an Israeli citizen or have an Aliyah date. So keep that in mind, that if you want to do medical school, you have to make Aliyah. And you have to come with the prereqs. It's all on our website. The top right QR code leads to our article on medical school in Israel. It's filled with tons of information about studying, and the bottom QR code is a link to the WhatsApp group of North American students who are interested in doing medical school in Israel. It's an amazing group which shares a lot of information and tips about applying to medical school in Israel. Of course, as I mentioned before, you have to work on your Hebrew because you will be tested. A few words about the acceptance criteria for applying to a master's degree in Israel. First of all, it's really important to know that in many cases, you will be required to find your own advisor before you can even apply for a graduate degree in science or in engineering. You're going to have to be proving that you have some sort of professional experience in the field in many cases, especially for an MBA. And the schools will be asking for recommendations and an interview. For English language degrees, your BA doesn't have to always be directly connected to the MA that you're applying for. And for an MBA, you'll need a GMAT. For psychology, you'll need a GRE. And for some of the medical schools, you'll need an MCAT. If you're applying for a Hebrew degree, you're going to have a BA which is much more connected to the master's you're applying for than if you were applying for an international degree. So if you have a BA in history, you won't be able to apply for an MA in psychology in Hebrew. Just keep that in mind. It's really important to know. You also are going to need those standardized tests, and your Hebrew is going to be tested. So again, this is the time to really work on it. If you don't only need it for school, you'll also need it for the Makolet and walking down the street and asking directions. So Hebrew is super duper important. I did see the question about the 6-year medical school. Because this is a webinar on graduate school, I'm not going to take the time to talk about the 6-year school, but all of that information is on our website. And you can also contact me directly. I'd be glad to speak with any of you on the phone, make an appointment with me. Our email is going to be on the last slide, and I'm happy to connect with any of you individually. Again, I want to thank you all for coming. And we still are, we have a few more slides, but I want to remind all of you that this will all be recorded, and you'll get a follow-up email with lots of information. So I'm often asked about language of study. If you have the option to study either in English or in Hebrew, what would be better? So I would say that it's extremely individual. If your Hebrew is really up to par, then I say go for it. Study in Hebrew so that you can up your game, so that your professional language is more polished when you enter the Israeli workforce, so that you can meet more Israeli colleagues as you're in graduate school. There's a huge advantage to studying in Hebrew. You're going to see when we talk about finances that there's also a financial advantage to studying in Hebrew in many of the cases. For those of you who I always am asked what happens with tests and papers. In Israel, almost every single professor in every single university is happy to receive papers and exams in English, even though there is no established policy in Medina Israel about this issue. If you ask your professor whether or not you can submit your exam or your paper in English, 95% of the time, the answer will be yes. So if you do graduate school, especially in graduate school, if you're going to be studying in Hebrew, if you can handle the Hebrew in the classroom, almost certainly you'll be fine in terms of exams and the papers that you have to submit, because you can do that in English. Even though there are as I said, over 130 programs in English. We still believe greatly in integrating, learning the language, and becoming as Israeli as you can, as fast as you can, because it'll be to your advantage in the workforce and in life in Israel. So now we're going to talk about the absolutely amazing Student Authority tuition benefit. As I mentioned before, the Student Authority is a department of the Ministry of Aliyah. It helps students integrate into college life, into academia by means of financial and also emotional and social support. So first of all, every single Oleh who comes to Israel and wants to do graduate school is entitled to receive a reimbursement of the Israeli standard master's degree. The Israeli university degrees are all standardized, and today in 2025, the tuition for graduate school is a total of 31,496 shekels. So almost every single Hebrew degree in Israel costs this amount. There are some international schools and Reichman University, which is private, in which the graduate degree is more expensive. So you'll have to pay the difference. While you will be reimbursed this amount if the degree is $50,000 shekels, which it is in some of the international schools, or 90,000 shekels, as it is for some of the programs at Reichman University. You will have to pay the difference between that and what you'll be reimbursed. So keep in mind that that this is mainly relevant for the English language graduate degrees, but many of them are also this standardized price. You have to check every website to see what the story is. You have to start your studies before you turn 30 and within 36 months of your Aliyah date, not counting Army service or Shirut Leumi. Every year, the application deadline for the tuition benefit is November 10th. For the degrees that are starting in the fall, almost every single degree in Medinat Yisrael, in the state of Israel, starts exactly 1 week after the Chagim are over. There are a few exceptions. Some of the degrees start in the spring. I know of a few MBA programs that are starting in a month in the spring semester, so be mindful of that. But for the most part, in order to apply for the student benefit, which you absolutely have to do, you have to be accepted to a program and you have to apply by November 10th. And applications open only in July. So even if you're accepted to a program now, you can't apply until July. And this QR code at the bottom leads to our website and our webpage, which describes this amazing benefit and has tons of information. Finally, I want to also say that the Student Authority tuition benefit includes a lot more than just the finances. They also help give support. They have tulim, they provide counseling. They are a wonderful, wonderful resource. And we work very, very closely with the Student Authority to develop these programs that are uniquely oriented for Olim and to give support to the Olim students in every university. The last thing I want to mention is the TACA program. TACA is a pre-academic mechina. Basically, it's helping Olim prepare for a Hebrew language graduate school. And any Oleh that wants to study in Hebrew but feels like their Hebrew needs a little bit of help, or they want to refresh their memory on statistics or participate in all sorts of academic courses, but they're not required to because they have some sort of academic background, whether or not it's a year or two of college studies, or if you already have a BA, or if you've done AP courses in high school. Taka is for Olim that don't have to do mechina, that don't have to do a preparatory program, but you want to. It's highly subsidized, it's extremely cheap, and it's between 4 and 5 months, usually takes place in the late spring ahead of the fall semester. We're happy to share more information about it. And it's a really wonderful program. We've gotten great feedback about it. That's it for this evening. If you have any questions, please contact us at this email. And Nurit and I are always happy to answer questions about Aliyah and higher education. And anything that you'd like to discuss, you can set up meetings with us. And we're really delighted that you joined us. Thank you so much for coming. We should have B'sorot Tovot, good news for all of Am Yisrael, and we look forward to being in touch with you. So have a wonderful day, Shavua Tov, and thanks for joining.